Newsline.
Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Newsline Live. We're coming to you as always live and direct from our News First studios here in Colombo. Sri Lankans have been speaking about elections for quite some time. An election was announced, but it was postponed indefinitely. Now we're at a stage where we don't have local government bodies, no local government representatives, provincial councils, no provincial council representatives. The only representatives that are elected here in Sri Lanka is the Parliament of Sri Lanka. Even the President was elected from Parliament and not elected by the people. So against such a backdrop, governors here in Sri Lanka have been given substantial amount of powers in administrating the provinces of Sri Lanka. And to discuss these matters and much more, we've got with us here today the governor of the Western Province, Marshal of the Air, Roshan Gunathilake. Very good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us, despite your very busy schedule.
Good evening.
Mr. Gunathilake, first things first. What really is the role of a governor now against a backdrop where there are no local government bodies and no provincial councils?
Actually, the provincial councils, we didn't have the provincial councillors for the last 5.5 to 6 years. And now recently the local government bodies, after the dates were passed, that is also now run by the administrators. So as a governor, we have to look after the provincial council issues as well as local government issues. Administratively, we do our work well in the sense that we need to go to the public or meet their requirements, like municipal requirements and their taxation issues. All those things are handled by officials anyway. But the void here is that between the people and the politicians that they elect to represent them and bring their problems. So that is the issue. Officials generally work in the offices and do their work, and they know exactly what to do. But there's a difference where the politician goes to the people, gets their problems, sorts them out, and comes back to the council and works with the administrators and do that. So there's a void there.
Okay.
But we are managing. The workload is a lot, but anyway, our officials are doing a good job.
So, Mr. Gunathilake, things have been running smoothly in Sri Lanka without provincial councils, like you said, for 6.5 years, or close to 6 years, without local government bodies for quite some time. By the looks of it, the central government is also not too interested, or according to the central government, they don't have enough money to hold the local government polls. There is this notion among certain Sri Lankans that these provincial councils and local government bodies are really a waste of taxpayers' money. They're just cesspools of political corruption and all things that are averse or adverse to our country. Since the country is running so smoothly, do we really need local government bodies and provincial councils in Sri Lanka?
Actually, if I talk to you about the provincial council, now people, I think, I got used to living without the politicians there, because it has been going on for the last 5.5 to 6 years. So the work by the official, of course, takes place, and there are people who come to meet us, and we do that political role also, although we are not politicians. But the fact remains that the elected body is absent. So the connection with the public that you will get with them is drastically reduced when we are working here. But where the local government authorities are concerned, I think there it is with the village, it's with the town. So the representatives have to go and meet the people, and that's the system worldwide. And you get the problems, you sort them out and come back to the council and do your budgeting, and then fix your plans on how to serve the people. So with councillors, you have so many people attending to the problems, but without them, you have only the administrator. So that void is there. Of course, the work is going on. Maybe it can be more people friendly if the councillors are there.
Mr. Gunathilake, let me move to a little bit of a more political question, if I may. Recently, there were certain issues surrounding governors, because many of the governors who were appointed for the provinces were not appointed by the current president, but were appointed by the previous president. You yourself were appointed by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to the position of governor of the Western Province. And there were arguments being made as to the current president should be allowed to appoint his representatives, because at the end of the day, a governor of a province is a representative of the president. Certain governors were asked to leave. What's your take on this?
Yeah. Now, when a president comes, actually a governor serves in the pleasure of the president.
Yes.
So he has the right to ask anybody to leave if he wants to leave, if he wants that governor to leave. So there are 9 governors. So I think this president has decided to keep some governors and ask some of these people to vacate their position so that he can appoint somebody else. So I think that is what took place, and it took place quite peacefully. I don't think there was any issue at all with that.
There was a little bit of a ruckus, if I may say so myself.
Where was that?
we did broadcast it on our news.
Okay.
It was there, and it could have been read if you look between the lines of what people were saying at the time. But of course, it was not an all-out war.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, if we are carrying the authority of the president, I mean, he should have the right to have somebody whom he is comfortable to work with. So I suppose it's on those lines that some changes should have happened. But saying that, I mean, there were all the governors, they did a good job actually. Some of them were there during COVID, and there was no parliament also then. So they did a very good job. So I think that also should be said.
So there is a proposal that has been brought in Parliament by parliamentarian Jayanta Katagoda. And this proposal, according to this proposal, former members of local government bodies and maybe even provincial councils, if it's extended, could be called back into office, and their periods can be extended indefinitely by order of the Minister of Public Administration. What is your view on such a proposal? Now, there were statements put out by several organizations that are watchdogs here in Sri Lanka saying that this would seriously affect the sovereignty of the people, because it affects the, at least the intention of the government to have timely elections. Governments wouldn't need to have elections. If you are in control of local government bodies, you just get the minister to extend it. So what do you really think about this proposal? Are you in favor? Are you against it? Are you on the fence?
Yes, there have been discussions in Parliament about what you said. So I don't know what the final outcome would be. But according to the law that is in place now, when the time runs out, it comes under the control of the commissioner.
Okay.
So the commissioner has to run that place until elections are held. But then Parliament is where regulations are discussed and made. So we have to wait and see what the outcome would be. I'm sure there will be opposition, there will be people for it. So let's wait and see.
But where do you stand, sir? Where do you stand?
I stand on the side of the law here, because as a governor I had to honor the Constitution. Constitution says the commissioner has to run that place until the election comes. So as a good citizen, I'll wait for the elections to come.
So, but as a proposal, do you think that it is wise to allow a minister, or yes, a minister of public administration, to extend the period of these local government bodies, or in this case, actually, recall the local government bodies? Do you think that's wise?
Well, there is provision for you to increase the tenure.
Just by 1 year?
1 year, and then maybe another year through another system. But after 4 years, I think they stopped doing that, and they decided to go for elections. So when that decision is taken, other procedure must take place according to that. So everybody waits for the elections to come.
Okay.
So I think that's a normal citizen's right to ask for the election, and they are asking. So I don't know what Parliament will decide, but then I suppose people's views have to be foremost in their minds when they do their discussions.
Mr. Gunathilake, you said that you conduct a limited amount of consultation with the general public. There is a public day where they can come and meet you and relate to you their issues. What's the mood of the people like with regard to the local government bodies and how things are being run right now?
Well, to be very honest with you, I mean, though they come for their normal issues like transfers and their problems and their, okay, some people come asking for jobs and it's a political thing. So people generally come on Monday for that.
Okay.
But then every other day also they come and meet us with their problems. So we try to solve them as much as possible. But there's no despair. I have not seen any despair or any hopeless feeling amongst the public. It's just the normal problems that they have. So we try to resolve them.
Mr. Gunathilake, we're speaking today in a country where there are about...
Of course, there was a time when these issues were taking place and demonstrations and all these things were taking place. There was a different mood with the public. You know, they were angry and sort of looking at every official in a different way.
In a very antagonistic way.
Yes, as if to say, you have not done your job, that sort of thing. But now I think they have settled down. There is hope. I think we are doing okay.
So right now, Mr. Gunathilake, we are living in a country where 7 million Sri Lankans are living below the poverty line. Given your interactions with the general public by way of public day, or you said they come almost every other day, all of those interactions, what do you think the situation in the Western Province is like?
Well, Western Province has a migratory population also. They come for work and they go back. And there are people who are very much low in the, I mean, their earning power is very low.
Right.
My take on this whole thing, Shalan, is that you have to empower people. You have to equip them, empower them, and get them into systems where they can find their own employment and do their own thing. So until we do that, if we go to satisfy them with this and that and all these things,
with handouts,
we are going to be in one place. So we need to empower them, we need to train them, we need to get them into, I mean, they must feel respected and they must feel some value in them. So we got to empower them. I think this is the secret, that we need to go on this line. So if you empower them, they can go abroad, they can do respectable jobs. Even here they can do it like that. But what happens is after school and that gap, I think a lot of people get misled and they get into so much of nefarious activities, and we find people on the streets. I mean, you see the level of violence it was not like when we were small. I mean, it's a serious issue. So you need to keep the people busy, make them feel wanted, make them feel valued, and then put them into society and they'll do the rest. You don't have to do anything else.
So when you say that little period between finishing your school and getting into university, what period are you talking about?
Some people, they stop their education at O levels. That's the danger there, because they don't continue. They get into a three-wheeler or some place. But then if you have vocational training to get them up to respectable standards of, qualifications, where they can get a degree but they are quite okay with this, I think there are enough jobs here. I mean, for our construction industry itself, we get people from outside to work here. So there are enough people here. I think we should be able to keep them busy and get them having their own families, their own incomes and all these things.
Are there any programs currently ongoing, well, under your purview as the governor of the Western Province, to do exactly what you were saying that should be done, encouraging the people, providing vocational training and other forms of training?
We do a lot of vocational training, and recently we started a program where, there are situations where farmers come into hopeless situation with so much of produce being thrown outside, and so we thought of having a program where we will build a factory or two, get their produce at a price that will not drop below a certain level, and make our produce, at the same time training entrepreneurs to on this type of work, and giving them NVQs qualifications, like producing butters, cheese, jams, and all those stuff. And so the provincial council also gets a little profit out of that, and the farmer and the consumer is also benefited with
Reasonably priced goods.
Reasonably priced goods. I think your paper did a small article also on that. So we are working on that to expand that, actually.
Well, we're in discussion with the Governor of the Western Province, Marshal of the Air, Roshan Gunathilake. We'll continue this discussion after a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Newsline Live.
News First, Newsline.
Special Parliament Select Committee chaired by SLPP General Secretary to find out why Sri Lanka went bankrupt. 9 out of the 14 members from the SLPP. No Samurdhi, no Aswasuma, no disability benefits. Protests on the streets continue. Natasha Edirisuriya released on bail. Give the general public the benefit of the reduction in policy interest rates. Governor of the Central Bank requests the financial sector.
News First, Newsline.
Yeah.
Hello there, welcome back. You're watching Newsline Live. We're in discussion with the Governor of the Western Province, Marshal of the Air, Roshan Gunathilake. Mr. Gunathilake, you were speaking about empowering Sri Lankans and not just giving free handouts. And of course, that's definitely an idea that anyone could really subscribe to because as this famous saying goes, you know, you give a man a fish, he'll eat a day. You teach a man how to fish, and he'll eat for the rest of his life. So you were speaking about the projects done under your purview as the Governor of the Western Province to accomplish exactly that. Are these projects, to your knowledge, being conducted in other areas as well, other provinces as well? Is there any coordinated effort, or is this solely one of your initiatives, your projects, only in the Western Province?
Yeah, we started it as our own initiative here. So it's like a model for anybody to copy. So any other province can do it if they want to. Some of them are aware of what we are doing. And I suppose once it establishes itself firmly with this NVQ training also taking place, I suppose others might want to take a look at it and do their own thing. But I personally feel that we are reaching the public. We are giving the farmer a good chance, some hope. And also the consumer gets a good product for a reasonable price. So I think that's good. Maybe because now if you take the eggs or whatever it is, we don't have eggs sometimes. Eggs are very highly priced. So I suppose my personal thing is that for a government to enforce pricing, the government has to have influence over something. So that means it must have some control over it. Maybe some production right, or maybe 10% or 15% of what is being produced must be from government sources, so that you can enforce prices, you can dictate terms. Now here, if you don't do that, we are at the mercy of all these people who raise their prices and the public suffers. No, those days we had a lot of government farms. I don't know the present situation of those farms. Maybe we should activate them. This is my own personal idea, so that the government has some say in all these production lines.
Mr. Gunathilake, just a while ago, I believe a little bit before we crossed over to the commercial break, you were speaking about the rise in crime here in Sri Lanka. Now, of course, you were appointed as a governor of the Western Province under the purview of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. And President Gotabaya Rajapaksa ran on the premise that national security will be number one. Ensuring a person's personal safety is, of course, part and parcel of national security. A rise in crime is a threat to national security. So against such a backdrop, when you look at the situation and things that are happening today in the country, but let's just focus in the Western Province only, shootings, killings, almost on a daily basis. It's almost starting to look like the United States, where guns are legal. Here in Sri Lanka, weapons are not legal. I mean, I can't legally hold a weapon. So against such a backdrop, as the governor of the Western Province, is there any intervention that you're making in ensuring that the crime rate is dropping? I know you're not directly involved in law enforcement. That's the job of the police, the Minister of Police. But is there any intervention, at least on your part, in ensuring that people are safe?
We are concerned. Of course, we have dialogue with the police continuously. But as you mentioned this word national security, actually it's a closely integrated system of a lot of compartments coming together. That's what you call national security. So if a person's economic situation weakens, then I mean, all the other factors might impinge on him and he might come to the streets firing his guns or activities. So everything must be balanced, you know, the economic situation must be okay, education system must run well, health system must run well, then our finances must be okay. So these are, we can talk, but it's very difficult to maintain this, but then everything has to have a balance so that the public is safe and a man can say, okay, my children can walk safely, learn whatever they want, equality is there, you know, liberty is there, that sort of thing. So when one factor goes off, all the other things start to shake.
So are you saying that the rise in the crime rate in Sri Lanka could be, you know, attributed to the economic crisis that the country is facing? Not one, a little bit more than others?
That is one of the reasons, I would say. But of course, these things start from your home. I mean, you need to be well brought up in a homely environment. Your leadership, your immediate leadership is your mum and dad. You have to start there. Then you have to take that and go for your children, to your workplace, to your school. So it starts there. So when things start breaking down there, and the family unit doesn't function properly, all the other things get into disarray, and then you find all these things happening. So I don't know, you will have to agree with me on this. It starts at home.
Cool. Mr. Gunathilake, we're in the final few minutes of the show. Let me pick your brain a little bit again on something more political than you'd probably like to answer. Mr. Gunathilake, I was recently going through some statistics, and in Sri Lanka as a country, we spend about north of 50% of our budget on defense. This is related to the rise in crime rate. So in a country where we spend north of 50% on defense, we barely have 6% for education, even less than that for health. And we have about 2%, I believe, for transport here in Sri Lanka, which would explain why our public transport, buses, trains are all so bad. So in a country where we spend over 50% on defense, do you think it's acceptable that there is such a high crime rate in Sri Lanka that a woman can't probably walk home on a dark road in the night and be sure that she'll be safe? That children can't really walk around in their own villages without the threat of being abused. Do you think that is fair in a country where over 50% of our budget is spent on defense?
Yeah, of course, Shalan, now defense, they're active when there's some requirement. If there's no requirement, then they are in barracks doing their normal thing. But we have a big military force. You're right in saying that. Of course, most of these people who were there when the conflict finished. So you can't just send them home after they suffered and toiled on the battlefield. You have to keep them there. Of course, now the intakes are very small. So in the future, I think there's a gradual reduction in the
right sizing of the military is what they call it.
And what happens now is we were fighting with old equipment. So if you want a military, even if you downsize the military, you have to equip them with all the modern stuff for them to be effective. So that transient period will also have some expenditure. After that, I think maybe things will settle down and we'll have a efficient, moderately, I mean, size-wise, military that will serve the people whenever the requirement arises.
And that doesn't take up 50% of our budget?
It may not. It'll not after. I mean, after you get all your equipment and all these things in place, because buying aircraft is expensive. I mean, buying military hardware is expensive. So best thing is use technology, reduce the manpower force, and have an efficient military, small-sized military. But it will take some time. I think they are doing it, but it will take some time. Of course, you say it's big military, but those are also jobs people are working. So if they don't work, if they stay outside, I mean, they also can be, they can go either way. They can be peaceful citizens, they can be non-peaceful citizens. You've got to manage the situation very carefully.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roshan Gunathilake, Governor of the Western Province, Marshal of the Air, former Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force. Thank you very much for joining us on our show and also answering many political questions that I knew you quite probably wouldn't want to answer, but I posed them to you anyways. Thank you very much, sir, for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us. Thank you very much to our viewers out there also for tuning in, as always, to Newsline Live. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Until we meet you again, take care and God bless.